As a culture, we talk a lot about planning for a very short amount of time. So we talk about New Year planning between like December 31st and January 2nd. But the fact is, if you're building a business, you are planning and implementing a plan all of the time. So today I'm going to share my own process of how I do this in the new year, warts and all, feelings and all, in today's episode. Welcome to Explore Your Enthusiasm, episode 291 with me, Tara Swiger, and welcome to the new year. Yay! Over the years, I have written and recorded and produced tons of episodes and articles and a book about New Year and seasonal planning. So this year, I decided to share exactly what I do in my own planning and how I kind of feel about the process, especially in a year like 2020 when there are still so many unknowns in my business and in my life. You can get access to all of my episodes about New Year goals and planning and implementing those plans over at taraswiger.com/2020goals. Go there, put in your email address, and you'll get access to a page with all of those articles and a brand new worksheet to help you narrow down your goals to just one. So my planning actually started a little early this year. It started in late November, early December, because inside the Starship, we chose for our book club pick for the quarter, Everything is Figure Outable by Marie Forleo. This book is packed with encouragement and tough love and real-world advice for figuring out anything you want to figure out. The philosophy of it is that everything is figure outable. So what do you want to figure out? Let's walk through how you're going to figure it out, which is perfect for goal setting and thinking about the things you want to do in the new year. So as part of the book club, I committed to not only reading and discussing the book with other Starship members, but really working through the exercises, which I'm so glad that I did because it helped me get clear about why I haven't set a bigger goal, how to set a bigger goal, like a really, really bigger one, and work through all the stuff that was holding me back around that. The book is so uplifting and encouraging, and it was just exactly what I needed. It really helped me think through and find some clarity around what I want to do and recognize the self-doubt that has been holding me back for the last 2 years. Actually, let's chat a little bit more about that self-doubt that was holding me back. I talked more about this in episode 252. I go into what I was dealing with, where it came from, how I was working through it a little bit earlier this year. But the thing is, I had a major depressive episode back in 2018, and it really rattled me. So even after I came through it, I still had a lingering sense of like fear and concern that I wasn't going to be able to follow through on stuff. So I held back from committing to anything because I want to be able to like complete my responsibilities, to fulfill the things that I commit myself to. And even internally, I was afraid of committing. And soon after that, we actually became licensed to become foster parents. And I had no idea what I could do as a parent and what I would be able to follow through on after I became a parent. Since I'd never been a parent before, I didn't have any idea what to expect. So I became convinced that I wasn't going to be able to follow through on anything just because of kids. Now, the thing that's so insidious about this self-doubt is that it presented itself to me as a logic. Like, it's totally reasonable to expect that I'll be able to do less when I have kids than when I don't have kids. But like, what level of less? And how is that going to impact how I can get things done and the timeline it takes to get things done and my overall commitment to other things outside of my family? And because I didn't know, I assumed the worst. I assumed that the kids would be some kind of hurricane or giant black hole that sucked up all of my commitment and my time and my energy, and I wouldn't be able to do anything that I had done in my business. Which, by the way, I want you to know, is a normal fear, but it's really a silly one for me to have because I've spent the last decade working with women who have not only have kids, but have many kids, and they homeschool their kids and they have babies and keep building their business throughout the whole process. I've had babies with many of my students over the years, and so I've seen what's possible for a new mom who is still totally committed to being with her children. And yet I did not have the faith in myself that I was going to be able to make that transition. Now, I am able to see at this point that a lot of that was just catastrophizing. I didn't know what to expect, either about recurring depression or about parenthood, and so I assumed the worst. I catastrophized to believe that it would all be a catastrophe and it would all fall apart. So in order to move forward and set bigger goals, I needed to tap back into confident Tara who believes she can follow through, Tara believes she can do stuff in order to dream big and to create a plan and to follow through on that plan. Because, and this is important, you must believe that it is possible if you're ever going to do the work. So, depressed Tara, not confident Tara, she didn't believe it was possible, so she didn't even put in the work, which then reinforced my belief that I wasn't going to follow through. I see this happen with so many of you, so I know I'm not alone, and that is why I am sharing it, because even after a decade of building a business, after a decade of believing in myself and following through on what I promised myself, I still was hit with such a wave of self-doubt, and this is really common both when you're dealing with something like depression or anxiety, or when you're dealing with a major life change or a season change in your business or your life. It might be a illness or a health concern, or it might be new kids, or it might be your kids leaving the house or your kids going to school for the first time. Whenever things in our life change, it is really normal to have this wave of self-doubt and can I follow through, because things are different and you don't know what you in this new situation is going to be capable of. I'm sharing this because I know I'm not alone, but also because I want to be clear that in the middle of it felt very real and very logical and very true. If you are in the middle of self-doubt or you're feeling battered by life, give yourself some grace. It's going to be okay. You might not be in the place to think big, to dream big, to commit to big things right now, and that's okay. You can go back and listen to my episode about the seasons of your business. I'll make sure and link it up in the show notes, because you might be in a season where dreaming big and setting big goals just isn't what's right for you. Or you might be in a season where you need to work through it. You need to acknowledge the self-doubt that's holding you back, or the season that you're in and how you are restricting yourself because of it, and move past it, grow past it, build that belief that you are going to do it. And the way you do that is by committing to something and then following through and showing yourself you're capable of following through. Now, just because it's the beginning of the year, you do not have to be on top of everything. You do not have to have your game together. You can spend some time to get inspired to feel confident again, or maybe for the first time ever. You can do it by listening to past episodes of my podcast. A lot of you tell me that's how you get confident, or check out Marie Forleo's Everything is Figure Outable. I'll have it linked up in the show notes below. And she also has an amazing YouTube channel with interviews and conversations about the same stuff. So once I was in the right headspace, it was time for me to actually plan. And before I get into how I plan, and we're going to get super nitty gritty and I'm going to talk about the tools I use, I know you want to know where I plan. These details are not really important because you need to do it however it will work for you, but I know I love to know the details about how other people do this, and so I'm going to share what I use with you, and I'll also include links in the show notes so you can try out my system and see if it works for you. So actually where I do the planning is actually two parts. There's where I write it down and then where I physically go with my body in order to do the planning, and both are very specific. I have honed over the years to figure out what works best for me. So I always plan my year, review my last year, plan my new year, and then do my quarterly map making and check back in throughout the year in one notebook. I keep this one notebook separate from my everyday notebook or my everyday planner. Last year I tried to include it in my happy planner, but it was just too much. I didn't want it with my daily and weekly stuff. So I like to have it all in one notebook. I typically keep that notebook right next to where I sit and have coffee and do my planning in the morning. So it is easily accessible. I don't have to search through past notebooks to find it. I actually have a whole shelf kind of behind me here in the video that you can't quite see of those notebooks of yearly planning in the past. This year I'm using Happy Notes, which is like Happy Planner. So you can take pages in and out. It's the disc system. So I'm going to be able to make pages in that notebook and then include it in my planner and kind of move them back and forth as time passes. In the past, I've just used a big blank moleskin notebook. I'll link up the exact one in the show notes. I'm also very particular about my pen. I'll link that up as well. Now, I typically, where I do it physically in the time-space continuum, is I like to go to a coffee shop, get a fancy latte, which I don't usually drink, in a mug and sit by the fireplace and have 2 to 3 hours with my headphones in, playing nice music. I'll link to my favorite playlist, and just totally alone, totally in my own world. The dogs aren't interrupting me. The dishes aren't there to be done. My husband's not talking to me. The kids aren't crying. That's where I like to do it. Typically the weekend between Christmas and New Year's Day. However, last year at that time, really this time, I had a brand new toddler in my life. My first toddler ever. She was brand new to me. Life was completely chaotic. I did not do any planning until the end of January, and I did it on my couch during nap time time with a cup of tea during her nap time. And it took me several days to kind of work through my usual process while she was napping. She only ever napped 45 minutes at a time. I like to make it special and feel special and not do any other work around it so that I have my mind right. And what I mean by your mind right is A, confident, B, creative, open, seeing possibilities, and 3, I want to be able to think about what without focusing on how. And my brain is like real big into how. If you tell me any of your plans, I'll immediately be like, oh, we could implement it by doing A, B, and C. But no, I want to be able to think of my New Year planning, my big vision planning for my business, my life, at least sometimes without immediately snapping into the like, let's make this actionable. Because if you focus too much on that, you won't be able to see all the possibilities because you'll think, well, I don't know how to do that yet. You're going to learn. So we got to be open to possibilities and not really surrounded by the everyday of work and life. I start planning the new year by reviewing the last year, which I find very inspiring. It is so great to remember all of the good and all the lessons learned and all the things I accomplished and everything in the last year, good and bad, because it keeps me grounded in where I am in my business right now. So I use my own book, Map Your Business, to do this, to review the last year, to see where I am, to really analyze like on the big picture, what got done, but also in the small picture, like how much money did my business earn last year? What were the best selling products? Where did the money come from? What was the thing that was most exciting? Where was all my enthusiasm? All of that I need to know before I move forward into the new year. So Map Your Business has several pages of worksheets that will guide you through doing exactly that. I put my process for reviewing the year in Map Your Business. So instead of trying to remember it again each year, I just open it up and I write it in my journal. Now here's the thing that you got to be careful of. It is easy to use what has happened in the past as a chance to beat yourself up and believe that the future isn't possible. Maybe you didn't hit your goals last year. Maybe you didn't do anything last year. Maybe you're looking at where you are right now and you're thinking there's no way I can go where I want to go because of where I am now. But hey, that's not what this is about. And it is okay that you are where you are right now. Take a deep breath and accept you're exactly where you need to be. You've done exactly what you needed to do to get yourself here. You have survived all of last year and the decade before that and all of your lifetime up until now. All of that has brought you to where you are and given you skills, experiences, abilities that you did not have before. You are closer to where you want to be than you've ever been before, even if it feels like you slid back, you didn't make progress. You're closer because you know more. You have more abilities. You know more about yourself. You know more about how you work well. You know more about your audience. You know more about your product. You are further ahead than you've ever been before. You have learned so much this year, both good and bad. Maybe it wasn't what you wanted to learn, but you have learned so much and you are in a totally new place. Yay! So this is why Map Your Business really focuses on the lessons you want to take from last year and applying it to the new year, because you've learned so much. So let's take that forward. A lot of times people set goals and they just act like it's a blank slate. They're a blank slate. You're never a blank slate. You've got all your experiences and skills and everything to bring with you. Even if this business is new, or this market is new, or this tool is new, you are still you that have learned everything you've learned about the world up until now. So let's bring that on. Now, there's also another section in Map Your Business. It's really important. I actually get more comments about this section than any other, which is funny because I almost left it out because I thought this is maybe a little too weird. But it's about releasing your regrets. Getting really clear about the things that went wrong, that felt like failures, that you are sad about, and then letting go of them. I tell you to rip them out and burn it up. You can shred them. You can throw them out. You can flush them down the toilet. People love to set them on fire. It is so cleansing to just get it out of your life and your mind so that you can move forward. Now, once you've let go of your regrets and you've got your lessons and you know where you are right now and you're ready to take your lessons forward, then it's time to think about the coming year, the upcoming year. I really like to start this by thinking about feelings. So there's several worksheets in my book that help me do this. They talk about things that I value, things that you value, the qualities I want in my life, the qualities I want in my business. And even though really the brand and the mission and the qualities of your business might stay consistent year after year after year, it's good to do this regularly to either refresh and remind yourself, like, this is what I'm about, or to notice how you've changed. Obviously, having a change in your lifestyle or your life or your health or your family makeup is going to change the things you value and the way that you express those values in your business and the qualities you want your business to have. So after you've thought about the big picture and the qualities and the values, and we go through a process called finding your North Star, because it's going to help you navigate everything else, including your marketing and your branding and the decisions. Should you do this or should you do that? But then we're getting down into like this year, what you're going to do this year. And one of the questions I like to ask myself is, how do I want to feel? Before I think about the specifics of what I want to do, everything you do is because you want to feel a certain way. So how do I want to feel? And then what will help me feel this way? A lot of times it's not related to your business at all, but realizing that and realizing what those priorities are going to help you figure out how to plan your business, because your business and your life are interconnected. For me this year, off the top of my head, I haven't done the full thing quite yet, is I want to feel strong and confident and loving. Loving's always on the list. So for me, what that means is strong is about being capable, and it's about staying calm, and it's about being resilient. Like when you're strong, it's also part of like being grounded, right? And when I say confident, I mean I want to feel capable. I want to trust myself. I want to be confident in myself and my own intuition. And I want to move forward on scary stuff. I'm doing new things this year that I've never done before. I need to have confidence in order to do that. And loving is like, I want to be loving with my family. I want to be loving with everybody who's involved in foster care, the social workers, the bio parents, obviously the kids themselves, and with myself. Gentle and caring to all of those people. And to remember, one of my kind of life values is to choose love over fear in every situation. So identifying that helps me figure out what exactly I can do. So what could help me feel this way specifically this year? Sometimes it's going to be a project, like I'm going to feel more confident when I have this debt paid off, or something that would help me move forward on scary stuff is to take this class or to change this about my office or whatever. I'm still making my list about the specific feelings and the projects I'll take on. So then I use Map Your Business. I know I keep mentioning it, but it's because this is my whole process. I put it in a book to dive into the specifics of what I want to create in every area of my business. Now, at this point for me and my planning, I already had in mind my sales goals, but a lot of years I don't. And a lot of years instead of picking like one big overarching goal, like a sales goal for the whole year, I just have several smaller goals that I'll work on in a particular quarter, right? Like there's not always one overarching 2020 goal. A lot of times there's one overarching 2020 feeling or word, and that's what it's all about. And the thing is, even with having my overarching sales goal, there's still more to my life than like that sales goal. Right? More to my life than the business. In Map Your Business, I ask you to get really, really specific about 3 to 5 bigger picture things. So for me, that looks like Jay and I need to trade in his 20-year-old car for a newer car that we can put car seats in. We want to pay off debt. I want to have more than enough money saved up to pay my taxes quarterly. Now, those aren't very exciting, but those are things that we definitely need to work on. So Map Your Business has you list out everything you want to accomplish, big and little, which I love. And then from that, pick the 3 to 5 that you're most excited about and get really detailed about them. It doesn't mean that these are necessarily going to be like goals, but they might be projects. They might be things that fit into other things. As you go on, the process will help you figure that out. But I also really love the idea of listing 100 things you want to do this year. I got this from Leonie Dawson in her Shining Year workbook, which I used years and years ago, because there are so many things that you want to do in your business or your life that aren't really goals. They might just be tasks, or they might just be projects, or they might just be like an experience you want to have. Like, I want to knit more socks. I'm not going to set a goal about it. I just want to knit more socks. So I will like list the specific socks that I have yarn for that I want to finish knitting, or I want to finish a shawl, or I want to work on a quilt, or I want to hike on this trail for the first time ever. I like to list all of that in my journal as well, so that I have a list of things to come back to mid-year every quarter and be like, oh, I could do that. It's summertime. It's time to go hike that trail. Kind of keeping front of mind the things that will make your life feel like the way you want to feel. So then after you have a goal, and it could be your big overarching goal for your year, or it might just be one of the projects you want to work on, then it's time to make a plan. And this is where all of the uncertainty in my life, and maybe your life too, makes it feel like, well, I can't make a plan because everything is uncertain. OMG. Because I have no idea of what my home life will be like even when this episode comes out, let alone at the end of the year. Will we have 2 kids? Will we have 3? Will we have 1? Will we have none? I don't know. There are so many variables. It's easy to think that there's no way I could plan and that, oh, well, I guess I just can't achieve my goals, which in the past is what I would have done. But that's just not true. Of course you can plan even with lots of variables, because what you can do is make a plan for what needs to be done next. So in Map Your Business, we do this in 3-month chunks. But if your life has a lot of variables and things up in the air, you can pick a goal that will fit a 3-month chunk, but give yourself grace if it takes longer than those 3 months. 3 months is just an arbitrary time so that you can kind of scale the thing down. If it's just a big year-long goal and you don't scale it down into something more immediate, it's going to be hard to keep working on because it's going to seem too overwhelming and too far away. So you can still make this quarterly plan, even if it takes you more than a quarter, or you have a whole quarter where you can't work at all. You can still make a quarterly plan and then just implement it when you can. So I promised you specifics, so let's see what it would look like with my goal. Now, my goal is a sales goal, and it's more than twice what I've ever sold before. And I need you to keep in mind that sales is not profit. We go into this in my free masterclass, which you can find the link to below, but I'm not talking about doubling profit, which would be a different kind of goal. I'm talking about simply the sales number. Now, my first step in breaking down a sales goal, which I've done many times with Starship Captains, is to chunk it into halves or quarters of the year. Because if you're increasing your sales, it's not likely to happen at a steady rate. For example, if your goal is to make $36,000 a year, and I just picked a number that this would be easy to do the math for with 12 months in a year, this is not my goal. But if your goal is to make $36,000 in a year, it's not likely that you're going to make $3,000 every single month, especially if you're just at like $1,000 right now. You're not going to go from $1,000 in December to $3,000 in January and then just stay at $3,000. Now, if you're already making $36,000 in a month, maybe you just want to even it all out and get it more consistent, and that's a good goal. But the thing is, you're going to start out lower in the beginning and your business is going to build to higher at the end. So you can't expect that it will all break up evenly, because when you do that, you get really disappointed. Like if you've thought, okay, I'm going to make $36,000 this year, so in January I need to make $3,000, and then you only make $1,000, you're going to feel like you're $2,000 behind when in fact you're not. It's fine. You still have time. Or you're going to think, well, I have plenty of time, and you're not going to do the work you need to do in a timely fashion to make it happen. And then on top of that, some months are just lower than other months are. So for example, you're probably going to see a decline in sales in January because January and February in many industries are lower sales month than December is. So if you start out thinking that January and February will be way higher, you're going to feel defeated about your goal before you're really even a 12th into the year. You'll also want to look at what you're doing that will increase sales. And again, we're just talking about splitting up a sales goal, but you can split up any goal like this. So what do you already have planned? When do you have craft shows? When are you reaching out to new wholesale accounts? Are you doing a big Black Friday deal? Are you making an advent calendar? When are you going to be getting new customers and meeting new people? And how will you do that? Do you already have things on the calendar for that in certain months? Do you have things where you won't be working in certain months, where you're absolutely definitely going to go on a vacation, when you absolutely will be going and getting a surgery? That you want to take into account when you're looking at splitting up your goal. If you're splitting up the goal of $36,000, you might split it up like $13,000 in the first half and $23,000 in the second half of the year. Then you could break it down into quarters, and this is just an example. Maybe quarter 1 is $5,000 and quarter 2 is $8,000. So that brings you your $13,000 in the first half. And then quarter 3 is $10,000. And then quarter 4, because quarter 4 tends to be higher in most businesses, is $13,000. Do you see that if you didn't do that though, you would feel defeated all the way along, even if you were right on target? So if you have a quarter 1 that's $5,000, you might feel like, well, geez, 1 quarter is $5,000. So I guess the most I'll make this year is $20,000. No, girl. You're on pace to hit $36,000 if you do the increasing over the quarters. Remember, you have to believe it's possible before you'll do the work. So you have to make sure that your goal seems not only possible, but is also realistic with how the world works, how sales work, how you work, what you have scheduled, in order for you to put in the work to make the goal actually happen. To be clear, my goal is a lot bigger than this, but I just wanted to use a number that was really easy to talk about and that might be more in line with a goal that a lot of you have for your sales numbers. And I'm talking about splitting a sales goal up, but you could absolutely do it if it was maybe your goal is to be in new retail shops. Maybe your goal is to do your first 5 craft shows. Maybe your goal is to do your first 1 trade show. And so you need to make a lot more product. And so you've got a production goal for the year. Your goal could be anything, or it could just be a series of smaller goals that you're working on. But my point is, if you've got a big overall year goal, you've got to break it down and you've got to be realistic about where the growth is going to happen and that growth builds on itself over time. After I split my goals up into after I split my sales ideas up into quarters, then I look at the months. When am I going to be traveling? When am I going to be working? When am I going to be doing this? When am I going to focus on that? Like, it makes more sense for me to have more sales of Map Your Business at the end of the year and the beginning of the year, and at the midpoint of the year, I might put that on my list. There's actually a page in Map Your Business for your months for you to write in the different events or goals for each month of the year, January through December. Once you have your goal broken down, I want you to pick a goal for the quarter, even if it's going to take more than a quarter. Pick one that seems doable with life right now for the next quarter. And then there's the most important step. You're going to forget all the other goals. You're going to forget all the other quarters. You're going to put them out of your mind. Just focus on the goal for this quarter. The reason is because if you are constantly holding yourself against the goal that you want to reach at the end of the year, you will always feel behind. You will always feel scrambly. You will always feel not enough. And what happens when you don't feel enough? You don't put in the work. You start to believe it's not possible, so you don't do the work. So forget about the future goals. Focus on what's in front of you. Now, maybe your goal is paying down debt and you have $100,000 to pay down in debt. If that's the case, forget the $100,000. Work on paying off $5,000. You see, if you're thinking about too much, it's too overwhelming and it's too demotivating. I just focus on the sales goal for the quarter and I ask myself, what can I do to reach this goal? Now, if you use the map making process inside Map Your Business, it helps you break it down into milestones, things you're going to hit on your way to that goal, and then break those down into tasks. For me and my business, this is a lot more about creating systems than it is one-time tasks. So my milestones are related to having systems in place. So I put systems in place to share my work with more and more people as the year goes on. Like, I'm more and more kind of marketing avenues and tools and systems as the year goes on. And because of foster parenting, it's really important to me that it's not just that I'm hitting sales goals, but that I'm creating systems that can work even when I can't work at the same pace, so that I can spend my time that I do have, my time and my energy, working with Starship captains so they're getting the best experience and the most transformation in their business, and writing and recording this podcast and the events that I'll teach at, writing and recording and attending those. So I'm actually creating the most value with my time and energy I have, and my sales systems are working without me. That's all part of what I'm doing to reach my goal. I have specific tasks I need to do. So I make sure that I have a to-do list for that sales goal, and it's related to implementing, testing, and tweaking those systems. I have a specific list of things I want to implement and variables to test. I've even joined a program that includes a community where I can get my questions answered and learn what to test and how to tell if a test is working, because I don't know that on my own yet. That's part of scaling up and doing scary things. Because there are so many unknowns in my life. There are events and appointments and meetings that come with a new placement that I don't even know if they're happening or not. I just need to do what's right in front of me. I don't need to worry about if I can complete this goal or this mile marker in a quarter or a month or a week. I need to do what's in front of me today. So I made a plan that will most likely fill 2 to 3 months if everything stays the same as it is right now. If I still have the working hours that I have right now. But I know that I'll need to be flexible. If it takes longer to get a placement than I think, I'm going to be able to get through my list faster. If I get a placement before this podcast even comes out, I might not be working at all as you're listening to this. So those 2 to 3 months will be pushed out. It will take longer. But when you have a plan, then you can do more work in little bits and pieces when you have it. If I don't have a plan while the baby naps, I don't know what to do. But if I've got a plan that is maybe a little over ambitious, I can still act on it when I have the opportunity to act on it, which is vital to keep things moving forward, feel that momentum, and feel like it's doable so that I actually put in the work. That's it for planning. The next step is to actually put weekly and daily tasks in front of me, in my planner in front of me, and to make sure I have projects and tasks and deadlines inside Asana, both for myself and for my team. If you want to learn more about how exactly I do that, I just recently talked about it. So back in episodes 287 and 288, I talked about paper planners, and in 288, I talked about Asana or task management software. So if that's where you're struggling to actually implement your plan, go back and listen to those episodes and start trying things. Tweak your productivity system so that you get stuff done when you can get stuff done, and you give yourself grace when you can't. So tune in next week to learn more about how to make your launch as successful as possible so that you can reach your goals through launching. And then in the following week, we'll talk about how to make continuous sales after you're done launching. How do you keep making sales even when the launch is over? Both of these will help you reach your sales goal if you've set a sales goal. So I hope you have subscribed and you tune in to hear those. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope your new year planning goes beautifully, and I hope you have a productive and peaceful and loving 2020.